Now the next topic we are having is integration tools. Okay. So in Workday we have couple of integration tools. So the couple of integration tools, I mean those integration tools are EIB. The first integration tools which we will talk about is EIB. We call that Enterprise Interface Builder. Okay. So this EIB is mostly EIBs are mostly created on report outbound EIBs. There can be two kinds of EIBs. One is inbound EIB, other is outbound EIB. So outbound EIB, I mean, there will be two kind of data sources for outbound EIBs. One is the web service, and another is the custom report. Okay, so whatever reports you have created as of now, which you have enabled as a web services, you will be able to use those reports to create outbound EIBs. Okay, so this is the most common used integration tool. Okay, this is really a very easy integration system in which the data source, the transformation, everything is quite easy. Okay. So the first integration tool is EIB. Okay, then we have cloud connectors in Workday. So in cloud connectors, basically Workday offers some template-based integration systems. Okay, you can create a template-based integration system. So when we say template-based integration system, that means Workday offers generic templates. Okay, that will extract data and you can send to any third-party system. So when we say generic in templates, what does that mean? So for example, let's say in your company, Workday is the source of truth. Workday is a HR system. Okay. And you have many other systems in your company. For example, Kronos, Concur, then ADP, then, many other systems. So what happens, like when you hire someone in Workday, all those systems, require that worker data. So basically, if you want to create a profile in Kronos, you're not going to create manually. You want data from Workday. The employee has been hired in Workday, so all the data is stored in Workday. So if any system requires employee details, worker details, then the data will be fetched from Workday. So this is a kind of common thing. Okay. So each and every system will require the employee ID, first name, last name, date of birth, gender, and all these things. Okay, related to employee. So it's a kind of generic thing which each and every system is expecting from Workday. So there, what Workday has done is Workday has created some templates. So you can just create integration system based on those templates. Okay, you just need to configure those templates. Once you configure those templates, you will be able to get the data. So we will talk about this cloud connectors in upcoming sessions, like what exactly is the use of this, how exactly we can create and all. Okay, the other important feature of cloud connectors is this is used to detect the changes. Okay, if you need to detect changes between two time frame, so these cloud connectors help us to detect the changes. Okay, so this is what we call as cloud connectors. Next is document transformation. So document transformation is actually you can say a transformation mechanism, which Workday is offering, where you need to write some XSLT codes. Okay. So based on those XSLT codes, your raw format of data will be transformed into the desired format. Okay. So for example, if you are creating a core connector integration system on template core connector worker is a template, okay, offered by Workday, and that template is used to extract the details of the worker. Okay. So now let's say you are creating an integration system, core connector worker, where you are getting the output as XML file. Okay, output as XML file. Now, the other system doesn't support that XML file. The other system is not able to read the XML file and process. Okay, so in those cases, we would need those. We would need that raw XML to be transformed into some other format. Okay, so there we are going to use document transformation. Okay, and this document transformation can also be used for error message functionality. Okay, basic error message functionality. So basic error message functionality means, let's say you are extracting 5 fields from core connector worker: first name, last name, date of birth, gender, hire date. Okay, if you are extracting 5 fields, and there you want, when before you send data to the downstream, you want to get the errors, like if someone's last name is missing. Okay, last name is kind of mandatory field. Okay, if someone's last name is missing, you want to print the errors. Okay, you want to get the errors in the integration system. So that is something you will be able to do in the document transformation. So in upcoming session, we will understand like how exactly that can happen. Then we have Workday Studio. So in Workday Studio, this is a Java-based environment, Java-based development environment for the customized integration. Whenever you get multiple, whenever you get uh, requirements to create a complex integration, such as you need to extract data from multiple sources, you need to generate multiple files, and you need to put multiple validations, okay, multi-level validations, okay. If you need to do all those things, then you should be going with Workday Studio, okay. We will not discuss how Workday Studio is created, but this is the most advanced integration system we have in Workday. This is one tool. I'm not sure whether you have seen any Eclipse or not, but if you would have seen Eclipse, then you would be able to create. So I'll show you. I'll give you the glimpse of Workday Studio, how it looks like, what are the features we have in Workday Studio. Okay, but we are not going to learn about Workday Studio. That's a separate training section. Okay, and also when you will join the project, you will you can learn from there as well. But for your knowledge, just for your understanding, Workday Studio is a Java-based development environment where you can create most customizable integrations. Okay, if you want to get data from multiple files, if you want to generate multiple files, if you want to validate multiple things, okay, everything you will be able to do in Workday Studio. Okay, then the another is Workday Exchange. So Workday Exchange, generally nobody talks about this. Okay, even in this course, nobody, none of the you will not find this anywhere in the system. Workday Exchange is something in Workday you are able to see some pages. Okay, now let's say if you want to create a complete new functionality where you want to create multiple pages. Okay, let's say you want to create a claim reimbursement system in Workday. So that is something is possible in Workday. Okay, you can create custom pages as well in Workday. So that is something we generally achieve via Workday Extend. So Workday Extend is something, a new technology which Workday is offering. And nowadays, many customers are using this Workday Extend. But in this training session, we are not going to discuss about Workday Extend anyways. Even, we can't visualize, I can't show you anything related to Workday Extend, okay? I can show you Workday Studio, how it looks like, but I can't show, Workday Extend. So anyways, let us not discuss that. So mostly we will talk about EIB, cloud connectors, and document transformation in this session. Okay. Now, the integration services. In integration services, there are many integration services offered by Workday. The one is the attributes, where you generally configure the attributes. So for example, you are creating one integration system, and there you need to configure, like, I just want home address. Okay, you are pulling address details. There can be many address details in Workday. For example, home address details, work address details, postal address details. There can be many address details. Okay, now let's say if you want to configure, if you want to get just one address details whenever that integration runs. Okay, and that is work address, not, you don't want to extract home address and all. So basically those are the things you are going to configure in the integration attributes. Okay, how this looks like, how exactly this works, that is something we will learn when we will be creating the integrations. Then we have document delivery. So document delivery is something, let's say you are creating one integration. Okay, let's say there is a Chronos system. The Chronos system is actually fetching worker details, okay, from Workday. So you are going to create one interface in Workday. That interface will generate files, okay. That file will be having the data. So once the integration generates the file, that file has to be delivered on some location, right? That is how the other system will consume the file. Okay, the other system cannot consume file directly from the Workday. Workday has to deliver the generated file to some location. Okay, so there, when you need to deliver files to one particular location, there we are going to configure the document delivery. Okay, so it could be anything like FTP, FTP, SFTP, AS2, anything, Amazon S3 bucket. So basically, you need to configure the document delivery. Okay, then the document retrieval. So document retrieval is like, now, let's say in your company, employees are submitting timesheet in some other system. that data has to be loaded in Workday. Okay. So when those data has to be loaded in Workday, then what will happen is the other system will run their own interface. They will generate the file and they will place the file in one particular location. Okay. They will not send directly to Workday. Workday can't, just consume that file directly. Okay. They will place that file in one particular location. Either it will be FTP, SFTP, or it could be anything. Okay. So what Workday will do is in Workday, we will configure the folder details. So whenever Workday interface will run, Workday will check, that location. If there are files present in that location, Workday will retrieve that file and process the file. So that's what we are going to configure in document retrieval. Okay. When you will be configuring actually document retrieval and document delivery, you will find most of the things are similar. Like you need to put the SFTP address, then folder details, then encryption keys and all those things. And you will be able to see most of the things common. But again, there is a difference. Document delivery is used to deliver document from Workday to other parties. Okay, document retrieval is something you are going to configure to get the documents inside Workday from other systems. Okay, so that's the document delivery and document retrieval. Then, integration maps. So integration maps are something like, let's say in Workday, you have the gender value as male, female, not defined. There are three values, male, female, not defined. Okay. But the other system is expecting M, F, and U. I mean, male for M, female for F, and not declared for U. Okay. So in these cases, you are going to configure the integration maps. Okay. Now the next is sequence generators. So sequence generators are like, let's say you have built an interface. That interface is delivering files to the third party system every day. You defined one schedule, like every day, 6 p.m. PST time, the integration has to be executed and the file has to be delivered to that particular location. Now, every day you are sending files to that location. Let's say you are sending worker.txt. Okay, worker.txt. When every day you are sending the same file name to that vendor, it will be very difficult to track. Like this day, which file you have delivered and which file they have consumed. So what they ask us to do is they generally ask us to embed date in the file name. Okay, for example, this one. This is a worker data. Okay, let's say you are sending worker underscore data dot CSV every day. You will not be able to track. Now let's say if you are sending worker underscore data underscore today's date, whenever integration is running. Let's say if integration is running today, it will give 20th June. Let's say integration is running tomorrow, it will give 21st of June. Let's say integration was run yesterday, then it was giving 19th of June. So basically every day, if you want to make this file name dynamic based on date or based on sequence, okay, in those cases you are going to configure sequence generators. I'll show you how exactly this works, but uh, just for your understanding, this is what is sequence generator. When you need to get the dynamic file name, like you need to include the date or sequences in the file name, you can go for sequence generator. That will help you to create dynamic file names. Next is the transaction log. So the transaction logs actually restrict integration to pick particular transactions. Okay. So particular transactions as in, let's say in Workday, there could be many transactions happen for one employee. For example, employee can apply absence. So that is absence request transaction. There are data change, hire, terminate, comp change, work schedule change, contact change. Okay, there could be many transactions that can happen in Workday. Now, let's say when you are building one integration system, there you don't need all this transaction. You just want to understand whoever has been hired and whoever has been terminated. You just want these details. Okay. In those cases, what you can do is you can configure the transaction log. When you will configure the transaction log, the integration system will restrict to those transactions only. If there is any data change happening in the system, integration will not detect. Integration will only detect when there is hire and terminate. If you allow only hire and terminate. So this is a configurable thing. You can configure a number of transactions there. Whatever you want to just retrieve by the integration. So this is what is transaction log. Then we have data initialization service. So the data initialization service, okay. Yeah. So data initialization service. So this is, one of the feature of the integration which replaces public API calls. See, there are multiple kind of job frameworks here in Workday. So when you create integration, generally, most of the things are communicated via web services, okay, API calls. So when you enable any integration as a DIS, it replaces API calls with the job framework processing. Okay, so generally it compares the audit between the two time frame, and if there is any change in that audit, this integration is going to pick. So we are going to create data initialization service integration as well as part of core connector integration. So there we will understand this data initialization service in detail. Okay, now yeah, now see, these are the services which you will be frequently using in integrations. Okay, what these services are, we are going to learn in upcoming sessions, so don't worry about that. These are just terminologies, so that when these things come, then you should be aware like what these things are. The next is launch parameters. So the launch parameters are like whenever you run any integration system, that integration system may require some kind of parameters to run. For example, you have created one integration which is extracting data of workers based on country. Okay, data of workers based on country. So in that case, in that case, you need to pass the country name in the integration run. Then only it will run. Let's say you created one EIB, okay, and in that EIB you are using custom report as a data source. In that custom report, whenever you run, that is asking you to enter the country name. Okay, so the same thing is going to ask when you will use that report in any integration system. Okay, that integration system is going to ask the same input parameters. So that is what we call launch parameters. Okay, to run any integration, if we need to provide any specific values, those values will be referred as launch parameters for that integration system. Okay, so if you want to explore all these things in Workday, okay, you will be having couple of things. So let's say if you want to explore EIB, so you can just type INTSYS EIB. Someone has created that EIB. So let's say this is an EIB. Any EIB you can pick. So this is an EIB. This is an outbound EIB. Okay, this is an outbound EIB where the data source is custom report. So if you want to explore the options, whatever you are having, here you can see that there is transformation method, then there is delivery method configured. Okay, there is data source configured. So if you want to explore, you can just open any EIB and just explore what are the options you have there. Okay. Then the other thing, the core connector template, which I have mentioned, the cloud connectors and the integration services. If you want to explore, what you can do is you just mention INTSYS CCW. So see, there is one integration created in the system on CCW template. So this one is the integration system where you can see integration attributes, integration maps, business process definition, security, and there if you will see, I was talking about the transaction log, then field attributes, and all those things, right? So here in the integration system, when you will go, you will be able to see integration attributes, field overrides, sequence generator, services, transaction logs. Okay, so all these things we are going to create by ourselves only. Okay, so don't worry about that. But if you want to explore these things, you can use these two integration systems, and you will be able to explore all the options. Okay. Now next is in Workday Integration Cloud. What are the tools we have in Workday Integration Cloud and how exactly those things work. So basically, uh, the first thing in Workday Integration Cloud is web services. Okay. So web services. So these web services are, I think yesterday only we were talking about the web services. So in Workday, If you want to extract data for any worker, any contact details or anything, if you want to extract data, Workday is offering many public web services. We call it public web services. Sorry, Workday public web services or public APIs. Okay, so those are Workday SOAP web services. You need to build some request message. In request message, you need to pass the parameters, and based on that, those parameters and the request message, you can hit the Workday public web services and you will be able to get the data. Okay, so that is something show. Then we have REST APIs, then custom APIs. Okay, so REST APIs are like when you are creating any custom report and enabling that report as a web service. Okay, so whenever you are creating any custom report and enabling as a web service, so those are REST APIs. Okay, basically you will be having one URL. You can keep that URL to any other system. That system will be able to fetch data from Workday. Okay, so that is REST API. So we have both Workday SOAP and REST APIs. Okay, you can create your own APIs. So you will be able to create your own APIs using custom reports. Okay, if you enable any custom report as a web service, then you just understand like you are creating a custom API in Workday. Okay, okay. Yep. So now there are multiple kinds of integrations we discussed, like we have EIB, then cloud connectors, document transformation, Workday Studio. Okay, so all these integrations, whenever we create integration using any of these tools, there will be some data sources. For example, you are creating a one core connector integration where you want to extract worker details. Okay. So in that case, you will need some data sources. So we are going to discuss the data sources used by the integration tool. So let me just mention here. So the first thing is EIB. In EIB, we have two things, outbound and then inbound. Okay. So the for outbound EIBs, the data sources will be web services and custom report. The data, so the data will actually come from another system via file or any other mechanism. But here the sources you are going to use as web service. You can explore all these things here as well. For example, if you want to create an EIB, so what you can do is you just go into the tenant and you just type create EIB. Okay, when you will type create EIB, you will get one option, create EIB. Here you can give any name. For example, let's say Ganesh, DNU, Ganesh, first EIB. Here you can select inbound and outbound. Okay. So let's say I'm selecting outbound. Click OK. Yeah, so here when I clicked OK, then there are multiple steps here. So one is the general setting where it's just giving the integration system name. Then the other tab we have is get data. So in get data, basically we will be extracting data from multiple sources. So the multiple sources means here if you see the data source type, in the data source type, you will be having just two options, custom report and web services. So this is what we are trying to understand. What are the data source types we have in multiple integration systems? Okay. So for this EIB, if you see the data source type, there are just two options. One is custom report, the another option is web services. Okay. Now let's say create another. Yeah, so here in inbound EIB also, you will be able to see similar steps. Okay. So here in gate data, if you see, then here in the gate data, you have some options. Retrieval method is attach file at launch, FTP, Google Drive, REST URL, SFTP. So all these things are kind of you can understand as a storage system. Okay, attach file at launch means this is mainly when you are doing the manual load. When you will be doing the manual load into Workday, you will be able to assign attach file during integration runtime as well. And if this integration is, let's say, connected to any other system which is responsible for updating something in Workday. Okay, so in that case, what will happen? That system is going to generate file and place file on some location. So these are those locations. Okay, this FTP, SSL, Google Drive, REST URL, SFTP. These are those locations. Okay, so the file will be placed there. The file will be placed there, and this integration will simply retrieve file from there. Okay, so let's say if there is one SFTP folder created and that system is delivering file to that SFTP folder, then here we are going to configure the SFTP details. In that SFTP details, we are going to mention SFTP URL, directory, then authentication method, and after that whatever file name you are retrieving here. Okay, so the files will be retrieved from multiple sources, whatever the source is been configured, and that file will be delivered to the web service operation. So here in the data format, it is saying the web service operation. So let's say if you need to update phone number, okay, if you need to update phone number via some file or via some other system. So here you need to update the web service as contact. Yeah, see, change home contact information, change work contact information. Okay, so these are the web services which will be used to load data into Workday via the external sources. So external sources will send data in form of file. That file will be processed and that file will be loaded in Workday using these web services operations. Okay, so all these things this is at a very high level. We are going to create all these things and we will try to understand like how exactly what is the spreadsheet. When we talk about the EIB, inbound EIB, how exactly data will be loaded. Definitely there will be some formatting. How that formatting is handled in Workday. So those things we are going to discuss when we will talk about the EIB, inbound EIBs. Okay. Right now we are just concerned about the data sources. So you just understand in outbound in EIB integration, the data sources will be web services and custom report. Okay. In inbound EIB, the data sources will be your file or any SFTP folder anywhere where the file is present. Next we have is connectors. So for connectors, it relies on the templates. Okay, it relies on the templates. So basically, Workday is offering many kind of templates. So let me, if I need to show you at a very high level, let me show you how the template looks like. What are the templates we have? Workday offers almost 529 templates. So to check that, you can just type create integration system, and in that create integration system, create integration system. Yeah, so when you type create integration system, here it will ask for the integration system name. And then in the lowest part, if you see, there is a template. Okay. So there is one field new using template. So now you are building integration based on one specific template. Okay. So Workday is offering too many templates. Now you need to decide which template you need to extract. So let's say you need to get the worker details. So you will be having one option, one template, core connector worker. This is one of the template. Then you have core connector global worker. Like this, there are almost 530 core connectors. 530 templates we have in core connectors, including inbound ones. Okay. So the data sources, the data will be faced based on the templates. So if you check core connector worker, there it will ask you to configure multiple services. So multiple services as in it will ask you to configure whether you want personal details or not, you want contact details or not, you want compensation details or not, you want leave details or not. Okay. So that is what this template will offer. So the data sources will rely on the API calls. If you select only person data, then the API will call only person data. Okay, and it will extract only personal data. So this is a template-based integration. Here the data sources, we don't have any specific data sources. Instead, you can say like the data sources are APIs only, but whatever we configure based on that, the data will be extracted from work. Then we have Workday Studio. Okay, so in Workday Studio, the data sources can be anything. You can get the data from file, you can get the data from custom report, you can get the data from web services. You can get data from in any form from any other system. Okay, so basically that's what is in Workday Studio. So Workday Studio, anyways, we are going to create. So let's not talk about that. So basically, if you are building any integration system, so the basic funda is that integration has been created to generate either to generate data from Workday or to load data into Workday. Okay, so whether it's a inserting, updating, or extracting anything, the data is there. Okay, so from where exactly we are going to get data in the integration? Okay, so that's what we are talking about. So let's say you are creating an EIB outbound integration. So in that EIB outbound integration, from where that integration is going to get the data? Okay, so that's what it data services. Sorry, data sources. Yep. Now, yep. So now there are multiple integration systems we have in Workday. Okay, multiple integration systems like EIB, core connector, connector with DT, then Workday Studio. So we have many integration tools in Workday. Okay, so in which scenario all these integration tools will be used? Okay, so let us just discuss in which scenarios all of these integration systems will be used. Okay, so the first is end-to-end connectors. Okay, so let's say there is one third-party system in US. I think for retirement savings, Fidelity is being used. Okay, so let's say you are trying to create one integration with the system Fidelity. Okay, you need to create inbound and outbound integration system between Workday and Fidelity. Okay, so for Fidelity, we have some end-to-end connectors. Okay, we have some end-to-end connectors where you just need to configure the codes. Okay, the benefit codes, benefit IDs. Okay, and the integration is ready. So basically, Workday has already given you the integration system. You just need to configure a little bit of details in that integration system, and both the system will be connected. Okay, Workday will send the demographic details. Then whoever is doing election in Fidelity will send the election details. Okay, then Workday will process those election details in the payrolls. Okay, so for those things, Workday is offering some kind of end-to-end connectors. Okay, so whenever you get a requirement to create an integration system, the first thing you need to understand is whether whether Workday is having one end-to-end connector with that vendor or not, with that system or not. If there is one end-to-end connector Workday is offering for that system, we are going to use end-to-end connectors. Okay. For example, for ADP, we have one PG template. Okay. Payroll effective change interface template. We have one PG template. So whenever you need to whenever you need to create integration between Workday to ADP, you are going to use that PG integration. Okay, payroll effective change interface. So what I'm trying to say is you will get multiple requirements to create integrations. Okay, so now Workday is also offering multiple options to create integration. So whenever you get the requirement to create integration, how will you understand like which integration tool you need to go with? Okay, so the first thing you need to check is if there is any end-to-end connector available in Workday, just use that template and create the integration system. Okay, if template is not there, okay, and if that system is expecting a generic data, okay, generic data. So generic data as in all the systems are asking for the same worker details, employee name, first name. It's just like someone wants 10 field and someone wants, 5 fields. Okay. So wherever that kind of thing is required, then again you will check for the generic connectors. If you have any template available to extract data from Workday, use the generic connector. For example, if you need to extract worker details, you have generic template core connector worker. Okay. If you want to extract the benefits detail, you will be having one template core connector benefits. Okay. So like that, there are many connectors. So the first time when you will get the requirements, you need to check whether there is any kind of end-to-end connector or if there is any template-based generic connector. If those connectors are available, you should be using core connector integrations or end-to-end connectors integrations. Okay. Now, let's say, someone is asking you to create an integration system where he is asking to generate a lot of fields, not a lot of fields, very few fields, and those fields can be generated via custom report. So here in the integration system, if you see payroll, if I need to create connect integration for payroll, you can just go with here PG. Yeah, so see, payroll interface, payroll effective change interface. So these are the end-to-end connectors. So you need to configure this connectors a bit, and this is ready to use. Okay, so you are going to create integration using this create integration system only. But here the templates are being categorized. The few templates are generic templates, and the few templates are end-to-end connector templates. So now we know. So we discussed about end-to-end connectors and then generic connectors. Now let's say you got some requirement and you can't find any kind of connector to fulfill that requirement. Instead, it is a very simple requirement. Like they are just expecting 5 fields. You can simply create a custom report and send the details to the third-party system. So in those cases, if that is that much simple, if you need to use just one custom report or one web service, then you are going to use EIB. Okay. So whenever you will be having the requirement to use one custom report or one web service to extract data, where you will need to do just one level transformation and you need to generate one output, there you are going to create EIB integrations. Okay. Now another is connector with DT. Now let's say you got one requirement where you are able to get all those fields using core connector integration. Okay, you use core connector benefits template and you got whatever data you want to extract. Okay, but the data which you have extracted, that is not understandable by the third party system. Okay, the data is not understandable because you are generating one XML file and they are not expecting XML file. They are expecting CSV file or TXT file, something like that. Okay. So there what you need to do is you would need to transform that core connector worker output, XML output into the system understandable format, which will be, CSV or TXT, anything, or DAT, anything. So there you are going to use connector with DT. First, you need to understand the fields required in that integration. If you think the fields required in that integration can be fulfilled by core connector, then you will create a core connector integration. But the second clause here is the core connector integrations are generating .xml output. That .xml output format is not, the other system cannot consume that .xml format. So they are asking to change the format. So there you will build one document transformation. Okay, you will build one document transformation on top of that core connector integration. So here there will be two-step execution. The first step will be core connector integration will run and generate data in XML format. The second step will be document transformation. That document transformation will consume data from core connector, okay, and generate and transform data using XSLT and generate in the desired format which other system is asking. Okay, so when exactly we are going to use connector with DT if you need to modify the output of connector. Okay, so if the core connector is generating output in XML format, but you don't need in XML format, there you can use connector with DT. Okay, if you need multiple output files, so for example, you have just one core connector integration, and that core connector integration is generating one raw XML file, but the file something, let's say there are 10 fields. Okay, there are 10 fields. So you need to generate multiple files. So multiple files as in, let's say in one file you just need uh, only 5 rows, sorry, 5 columns. In another file you need 7 columns. In another file you need 10 columns. Okay. So basically, if you need to generate multiple output files, then also you will be able to go with core connector with document transformation. But the basic criteria is the data whichever is required, that should be fulfilled with core connector. Then only you will go with the data. Okay. If the connector is not giving all the data, then you should not go with the data. Okay. We can also add some custom fields or the calculated fields in this templates. How exactly we will do, that is something we will discuss in the upcoming sessions. But just for your knowledge, we can add some custom fields as well. We can add some calculated fields as well in the connector templates. Okay. So here, just try to understand, like whenever you will create one output file using any connector templates, and you need to transform that output file, or you need to generate multiple output files, then you will go with the connector with DT. Okay. And the last is Workday Studio. So Workday Studio will only be used when there is a complex scenarios. In general, we avoid creating Workday Studios if the work can be done using EIB and core connectors. But let's say you got in a situation where you need to get data from multiple sources. Okay, you need to get data from web services. You need to get data from uh, uh, custom report. You need to get data from some of the file. So basically, multiple things are involved. So multiple retrieval, multiple delivery, multiple transformation, multiple validation. Okay. So in Workday Studio, you can do anything. Okay, you can do anything. Whatever customizations you want to put in the integration, you will be able to put. Here in EIB and core connector, there are specific things only which you can configure. But in Workday Studio, this is a purely custom integration. Workday is not offering you even a single step. Okay. So you are going to create each and every step. You are going to create how errors will be handled. Okay. So uh, all those things can be done in Workday Studio. So whenever there is requirement to create complex integration, which involves complex validations, complex data sources, complex transformations, multiple files, then you are going to use Workday Studio. Okay. So basically, based on requirement, you will have to choose which integration tools you should be using. Okay, which integration tools you should be using. Now, the next thing we have is launch integration. Okay, so basically, launch integration means whenever you create any integration, that integration either has to run or the schedule. So, for example, you created one integration, let's say integration INT 001. Okay, INT 0001 worker details outbound. You created this integration system. This is one of the integration. So when you will create this integration, you created this integration to extract, let's say first name, last name, date of birth, hire date, gender, work contact, work address, and there are couple of more fields. So you have created one integration system, INT 0001 worker details outbound. This integration is used to extract first name, last name, date of birth, and couple of more fields in the interface. So once this file will be generated, before this file is generated, you need to launch this integration, right? It doesn't mean like when you are creating any integration, automatically this will be launched. Okay, you need to configure something. So for example, here if you go, if this is, and let me open one EIB system or one integration. Yeah, so this is the integration. This is a CCW integration. CCW means core connector worker. This is a core connector integration, and this is built on core connector worker template. Okay, so here, if you go to the related action, there is one option to launch the integration. If you go to the integration related action, if you go to the integration, there is an option of launch and a schedule. Okay, so launch and a schedule. So launch means running the integration. Run, schedule the integration. So let's say that core connector you want to launch right now. You want to generate data right now. You can simply create, click on launch and it will ask you the parameters. You will be able to launch the integration. The another is scheduling the integration. Now what you want to do is every day you want to configure this integration in such a way so that every day this integration should run at 6 a.m. AEST. 6 a.m. AEST. Okay. If you want to run this integration at 6 a.m. AEST every day, then what you need to do is you need to schedule integration. Okay, you need to schedule integration. And how that works is, so basically if I go here and click launch, you will get multiple options. Okay, so here if you see the run frequency, it is asking whether you want to run now. Okay, if I close this, you will be having multiple options here. See, so run now means if you want to run this integration right now, okay, then you have runs once in the future. If you want to just schedule this integration to run once in the future, let's say tomorrow at 5 p.m. you want to run the integration. So what you did is you just schedule this integration with run once in the future frequency, and this integration will run during that time. Whatever time you will configure, integration is going to run at that time. Okay. Then you can also create frequencies. You can also create schedules based on minute recurrence, hourly recurrence, daily recurrence, weekly recurrence, monthly recurrence, okay, custom recurrence, whatever you want to develop. Let's say if you want to run this integration daily at 6 a.m. AST, just go with the daily recurrence, click OK, and schedule. Just provide all these parameters. What these parameters are, that this is something we will discuss, in upcoming sessions. Okay, so we will discuss in the upcoming session. But here you can configure the schedule. Okay, so in the schedule, you can just keep the start time. You can give the time zone and when exactly this recurrence should start. So start date and end date. You can give any start date and end date. Okay. So here basically you are scheduling the integration. Scheduling the integration means every day automatically at that point of time this integration will be launched automatically. Okay. So how exactly we are going to schedule the integrations and all, that is something we will discuss in the upcoming sessions. Okay. Now, whenever you run any integration, that integration generate integration events. So how can you check that integration events? So you can just click on the related action of the integration. Just go to the integration system. There you will be able to see the integration events. So this integration event is something, let's say today at 6 a.m. this integration is running. So at that time, when this integration will run, this integration will generate an integration event. So how the integration event looks like, what are the details, this integration event contains, let us just discuss, okay? So this is one of the integration event. This is one of the integration event, and that integration event will let you know whether the integration has generated any kind of errors or warnings, or the integration has completed successfully, okay? Then how many errors that integration has been generated, what is the processing time of that integration. So this integration has been completed with errors. This integration took 12 seconds to run, and after 12 seconds this integration completed with errors. Okay, what are those errors? You will be able to click on this. See here the number of errors. Here if you click on this number of errors, you will be able to see the error message. Okay, so along with the integration status and integration running time and the errors, you will be having multiple tabs which will explain multiple things about that integration event. Okay, so basically the first tab is integration details, where you will be able to see the basic details of the integration event, what date parameters was passed in the integration event, what are the child processes executed, what were the integration event parameters. Okay, so when this integration was launched, then what were the parameters, launch parameters were passed. Okay. So this is something you will be able to see in the integration details. Then you will be having one process info tab. In the process info tab, you will be able to see like when exactly integration started, when exactly the integration completed and all. Then you will be having another tab, process history. This process history will tell you, this will give you the last 5 integration history. The last 5 times when this integration was executed. If you want to see all the integration events, you can click on this all integration events and you will be able to see the details. Okay. Then the next tab is output file. So let's say you have created this integration and this integration is generating one file. Okay. So when this integration is generating file, that files will be stored in this output files. Okay. So those files will be stored in this output file. Then you will be having another tab, message. So this message tab will be giving you the messages which integration will be generated. So this will be different in each and every integration based on the configuration. Okay, so for EIP this will be different, for Studio it will be different. This is something will help you to understand what is happening in the integration, whether the first step has been triggered, whether the file has been triggered, whether the integration has been failed, why integration has been failed. If you want to understand all those things, then you can just go in the message tab. Then child process. In child process, basically you will be able to see all the a step which has been executed as part of the integration run. This is just for operational thing. Okay, whenever you will join and you join as a AMS team member, then you will need to go to this integration events and understand what is the error, why the integration is generated like that, what are the parameters integration is being using. Okay, so all those things you will be able to see in this integration events.